Malta celebrates its first St. Patrick's Day since the start of the pandemic. Maltese citizens in the UK won't vote due to travel complications, and Robert Abela is angry at ABBA for reporting pro-choice activists to the police. All this and more on Lovin Daily. Good evening, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. My name is Yannick. With me is Diacono. We have another jam-packed episode for you today. At the end, stay with us, stay tuned. We have an interview with PN candidate Mark Anthony Sammut. But before that, for the first story of the day, Tim?
Yeah, big story from yesterday. Hundreds of people hit up the streets of St. Julian's and Pargeville last night, and even yesterday afternoon, to celebrate St. Patrick's Day for the first time since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. So St. Patrick's was probably the first major event to be cancelled when the pandemic hit Malta in March 2020. The subsequent festival was cancelled as well due to another outbreak, but this time it did take place, even though technically standing events and standing events are not allowed. The Council of St. Julian's had appealed people not to celebrate it. They said there's no permit for any events, anything will be illegal, but many people went to the streets nevertheless. It wasn't as packed as pre-COVID St. Patrick's, but it was probably for the better, because no one really likes to be in the streets so full of people anyway. Interestingly, the leader of the opposition, Bernard Grech, was there as well, posing with youths and taking photos, and there was quite a bit of a discussion on it. But great to see Malta returning to pre-COVID normality.
Yeah, good to see. And I mean, obviously permits are there for a reason, but when people want something so much, it's a bit difficult to control and to stop people from actually going out. On to our next story. Several Maltese citizens will not be coming down to vote in the upcoming election because of what they describe as an overly complicated system for them to do so. Voters in Malta in Maltese elections aren't able to vote abroad or vote by post, and instead they have to come to Malta to collect their vote and vote in person. A couple of voters who live in the UK who spoke with Lovin Malta explained what they'd been through over the past couple of days, and basically said that despite their best efforts to find a way of coming down to vote, they won't actually be coming, because the only option left to them was ridiculously expensive, in their words. One reader in fact said that they had even gone to the High Commission in London to get an affidavit saying that they could vote early. They paid €90 for it, but even after all of that, they couldn't make it work. Flights were very expensive. And they basically voiced their frustration at how, in 2020, citizens of the country aren't able to carry out their civic duty and have to jump through hoops in order to do so. In fact, one also explained how problematic it is to even have to take leave, to come down, collect your voting documents. And they basically said, it's difficult for us in the UK, let alone if you live in Australia or the US. And they obviously also pointed to virtually every other country where it's possible for you to either vote by post or vote at your embassy, or when there are various options. It's unclear why Maltese politicians continue to resist making this shift, but up until today, 2020, that is how the system works.
Yeah, it's something that keeps popping up, I feel, every 5 years or so. And every 5 years, I remember it's from the last election, people were saying we need to solve it by the time the next election comes around. Look, here we are, and nothing has been done. I don't see why there's so much reluctance from the authorities to change this. Even at the very least, if you're not going to allow them to vote at the embassies, at least allow them to vote with their ID cards, because to spare them the hassle of trying to get these voting documents as well. And even for people who might lose them as well, what's the point? Moving on, Prime Minister Robert Abela has expressed his anger, his words, after finding out that the small political party ABBA had reported a group of pro-choice activists, doctors and organizations and academics to the police on the grounds of them being pro-choice. So Robert Abela was addressing a a rally by the Zazah Laburisti, which is the youth wing of the Labour Party, and he said, many discussions started the courage to think freely. Interesting. And I was so angry when I saw a political party continue the attitude it embarked upon during the university debate, a reference to ABBA, by reporting a number of activists and academics to the police simply because they're pro-choice. They reported to the police to scare them. Now, what's interesting about this, I feel, is the choice of words he used, and let's be very clear, he did them intentionally. The words pro-choice, indicating that these people are advocating for the right of people to choose whether or not to have an abortion, rather than people who want an abortion themselves. It may sound semantic, but it's not. It's very important in terms of the way these people are addressed, and the fact that the Prime Minister expressed his support for them in that way, even though he's still against abortion. It does indicate to me that at least the path is being cleared, let's put it this way, for a debate on abortion within the next 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, while I understand the Prime Minister's sentiment, because I don't feel that any activist should be reported to the police, it must be pointed out that according to Maltese law, even giving someone advice on an abortion is illegal. So if the Prime Minister is really angered by this, he could change the laws. In fact, there was a bill presented by Marlene Farrugia earlier this year which proposed decriminalizing abortion, which would have kind of not allowed these people to be kind of reported in the first place. So there is something that can be done. It's good that he's expressing this sentiment, but at the end of the day, we need to move on to actions, I feel. Our next story is about medical cannabis. Maltese medical cannabis patients have been shocked at the sudden and sharp increase in the price of their prescribed medicine. Bedrocan, it's a brand of medical cannabis, was out of stock again recently. It returned a couple of days ago, but when it returned, the price was 80 euros opposed to 65 euro. A number of people who use this medicine regularly said that basically, they couldn't understand how there was this 25% increase in price overnight, and how they were left wondering how they could get their medicine. They basically said, the alternatives are either a lot more expensive or of a much inferior quality. And Lovin reached out to the company that actually imports the medicine, which explained that in fact the price has now gone up to what it normally is. They basically explained that it was in a sense artificially low because of a promotion, which was the result of a deal they had struck with a supplier, which had now come to an end. So prices are back up to normal. In fact, they pointed to the price of the same medicine. Other countries explaining it was it was comparable. Obviously, a blow to people who require the medicine, especially at this time, when we're hearing about the cost of living increasing. But I guess there's nothing much anyone can do.
Yeah, I think the issue over here is the concern that the medicine might become more expensive than the product on the black market, which then makes the illegal product more attractive. Obviously, the medicine is not meant to be purely a replacement for recreational cannabis. But there is this concern. I feel that we'll have a clearer picture when these famous cannabis associations start opening, which is meant to be by the end of the year, in terms of what prices will be on offer. Finally, Emma the music producer behind Emma Muscat's new Eurovision song "I Am What I Am," gave an interview to the Danish public broadcast about the way her song was chosen, and it raised a few eyebrows, must be said. So the producer, who's called Anders Freslund Hansen, said that Malta's Eurovision officials reached out to him a day after Emma won the Malta Eurovision last month with Out of Sight, saying we need a new song, which is interesting because so rather than celebrating the victory, you're quickly thinking how about changing it. He gave them a selection of songs, of a couple of songs. It was shortlisted to 2, and eventually they chose this one, "I Am What I Am." And he said that it was crafted at a Eurovision songwriting camp last summer. The plan originally was to have it sent to a singer, which who will then use it to represent Sweden in the Melodifestivalen, which is the Swedish version of the Eurovision. It never made the cut. It never ended up competing in the Swedish Eurovision, and it ended up being given to Emma, who then crafted it a bit more and changed parts of it around, and now it's representing Malta. It's not a bad thing necessarily, right? So there are. This is the international world of music. What's pretty interesting about it is that there are songs that are originally intended for one person. So apparently a song I was meant to play for Rihanna ended up with Britney Spears. These things happen in the music industry. So it's and it would even be, I think it's now a bit of a challenge for Malta to beat Sweden and show Sweden, like, you missed the opportunity with this song.
Do you like the song less now that you know this?
No, I don't like the song more. I don't like the song less now that I know this. I mean, I think it's good for people to know it. I also appreciate the openness of this producer. And Malta, everything is all hush, like it's the biggest secret in the world, the Eurovision. Like, come on, just enjoy it and have a bit of fun. I like the song. I don't think it's going to win, but I think it's a bop. I was listening to it in my car actually the other day.
Well, most viewers will hope that you're wrong about it not being able to win, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll see, I guess. So that brings us to the end of today's show. We're gonna cut to a short break, but then stay tuned. We have our interview with Mark and Sammut.
Do you own your property in Malta or do you rent?
The bank
Għandek faxxa ta' nies illi ma jistgħux jaffordjaw ċertu prezzijiet tas-suq.
Il-gvern ma jistax jindirizza l-waiting list billi jibni biss. Nismu x'ġara.
Issa ħammu ġura l-oħra iktar aċċessibbli u iktar ħelpful għalija.
Il-kollaborazzjoni ta' Caritas mal-Housing ilha dejja snin u hija kollaborazzjoni importanti ħafna.
Il-Housing Authority qatt ma ġejt bżonna qabel.
Ir-rwol tal-awtorità tad-djar huwa li fil-waqt li tkompli tipprovdi social housing trid ukoll tindirizza dawn il-problemi akuti u kroniki li kellna.
Welcome back to Lovin Daily. With me now is Mark Anthony Sammut. Hi Mark, thank you for being with me here today.
Thank you for the invitation, and my regards to all those who are viewing Lovin Daily today.
So first of all, a brief introduction to yourself, who you are, and specifically what issues you will fight for if you get elected to Parliament.
All right, so I'm Mark Anthony Sammut, I'm 36 years old, I live in Rudia. I've been a local councillor in Rudia now for the past 16 years. I'm currently also president of the Nationalist Party General Council. And this is my third general election in which I'm contesting on the 4th district, and the first time I'm contesting also on the 10th district. I'm married, I have 2 kids, one aged 3 and the daughter aged 1. And I hope to be one of the new faces in Parliament to help also in the regeneration of the Nationalist Party. So what issues I have most at heart? First of all, I think we need to make an overhaul in our laws to help fight corruption and to enhance good governance. And the Nationalist Party already proposed a bill of 12 laws which would move us in this direction, also based on what the public inquiry recommended following Daphne Caruana Galizia's assassination. I have the environment at heart as well. I think it has been neglected for too long in this country, especially over the past 9 years, in which government has just bulldozed over every tree. There were trees which survived the war, but they didn't survive a Labour government, and that's a sad state of affairs. I have a background in sports and arts and culture, so I really hope that a time comes when sports, music and the arts are no longer viewed just as hobbies, as pastimes, but as real professions, and they're also included as an integral part of our education system. Our kids should not just be focused on getting bombarded with information. We need an education which does not just inform students, but forms students holistically, not just academically. So those are the main issues I really would like to strive for.
So District 4 and District 10, what would you say?
4 and 10.
District 4 and District 10.
Yes.
What do you say are the main issues facing these two districts, which are quite, they're quite different, right? There's one in one side of Malta, one not touching each other.
Yes, they're different constituencies, but they have some common issues. First of all, they're both heavily urbanized districts. So if you're at Sliema Gżira St. Julian's and if you're at Paola Tarxien Vlura, they face the same issues with parking problems, with traffic pollution, with the lack of open spaces. The parking was also an issue which we were facing in Rudia because of the airport, because of the issue of people leaving their cars there and moving away for long periods of time. Unfortunately, both the residential parking schemes and any other type of parking scheme were frozen by government, and this is affecting both localities like Rudia and other localities like Paola Tarxien and Sliema Gżira St. Julian's. And I think that's something which needs to be reviewed again. There are other issues which are common throughout the country, like the cost of living, which is affecting basically everyone. I mean, today, anyone you speak to would simply tell you about how a shopping bag, which used to cost 120 euros, now costs 160 euros when filled with the same items. It's the reality everyone out there is facing, and it's affecting mostly people with lower incomes, but not only. Even working couples who are still paying off their home loans.
Do you agree with the check as like a way to solve, as a way to tackle cost of living, these €100 checks?
Well, in the first place, government shouldn't have been robbing us €100 from our income taxes each year just to then give them back as checks.
That's a different check, to be fair. There are two different checks. A bit confusing, but there are two checks.
Yes, there are two checks, but we're basically being returned our own money. Money which was taken off our income taxes, money which was taken off our electricity bills with the new system they introduced. There are other measures which can be done. For example, 6 months ago, we proposed a 40 million national fund which would tackle the increase in prices of items which are being imported. We knew this reality would crop up. We knew this was going to affect the cost of living dramatically, and we tried to do something, propose something which would avoid having this burden being passed on to the consumer. That would have made a bigger effect on people rather than just dishing out €100 check. But not only, until the unfortunate thing about these 9 years is that the only way the economy grew was through two things: debt, national debt, and the creation of more cheap labor by increasing the population with more low-paid jobs. This had a ripple effect on the cost of living, on the cost of property, on the effects on the environment, on traffic, and the environment at large. We need to move with a new vision. What the Nationalist Party used to do in the past, not increasing the economy just with the creation of low-paid jobs, but with creating better quality jobs, with creating new economic sectors, which would not increase the cost of living, but increase the wages of people working in these industries. And that, I think, is the main fundamental issue, the main difference on how the two parties view the economy and how we want to improve the people's quality of life.
So, a few months ago, you wrote a very interesting post warning that the government's plan for vaccine certificates was all about control, not about public health, and they even go against EU rules. It was interesting because one of the first times I saw a politician from a mainstream party openly challenging the health authorities in such a very critical manner. The rules have changed since then, for vaccine certificates are no more, but some restrictions remain, especially some related to travel, to schools, and there are some other sectors as well. Is it time to scrap everything, in your opinion? All the restrictions?
Yeah. I think the discriminatory measures are not something which should be in place in a democratic country, in a free country, where we should not be imposing anything on people, especially when it comes to their health. There are many cases of people who have very valid reasons why they cannot take the vaccines, even health reasons, which are not, unfortunately, being recognized by the authorities. Also, when it comes to travel, we are the only country in the EU which does not recognize recovery certificates, which allows the second dose only to be valid for just 3 months and not 9, and which imposes a quarantine on all those who haven't yet taken their boosters and doesn't recognize a PCR test.
Okay.
This is also creating...
If you've taken the
only if you've taken the booster.
Oh, but in Malta.
In Malta.
Exactly. But if you're from Germany, you can come in without a booster, though.
But you have to quarantine if you don't have the booster, and that's creating the problem. That's creating a problem for people who would like to come and vote. We have many cases of people who want to come to Malta to vote, but haven't taken their boosters, and they're being told that yes, they can come, they can vote through the drive-thru, but they cannot leave the country before their 14 days of quarantine are over. And people who cannot afford to spend 14 days in Malta and would like to just come, vote and leave, are not being allowed practically to vote. And that's very, very discriminatory, that's very anti-democratic. And I would like to appeal to government to at least now do what other EU countries are doing. What the European Commission's guidelines suggest, that if someone is not boosted, you should ask for a PCR swab. If he's negative, just allow him to come in and avoid quarantine and come and vote and leave like everyone else. And I think it's time. Well, there are many political activities happening. You can see that in reality COVID measures are not very logical in the way we are allowing some activities, but then imposing more restrictions, for example, on weddings. I think the way the decisions are being made are not based on any scientific evidence, but on convenience, and that's not the convenience on political convenience. So a mass rally is allowed with a certain set of rules, while a wedding is allowed with a tighter set of rules. If you want to go see a sports event, you still are being asked to present your vaccine certificate, but not to attend a political rally.
Is it time for the health authorities to stop publishing or at least share the daily COVID-19 case numbers on their Facebook page, or at least to stop sharing them every day at the same time?
Well, the main concern is not the number of cases. In reality, the main concern is the number of cases which are being admitted to hospital, or which are being admitted to ITU, or which are resulting in death. If now, as a result of vaccinations and as a result of immunity, the effects of COVID are equivalent or on the same or at par with the effects of flu or with the effects of a cold, then why are we still treating it as if it's a far more serious disease? As long as the number of hospital cases and ITU cases and deaths remains low, I don't think there's any need to keep publishing and alarming people with the number of cases.
On a daily basis.
On a daily basis.
Interesting. So, another change in topic. You recently signed a petition that pro-life advocates have been circling around to all MPs and candidates, asking if they're ready to vote against any potential pro-abortion law measure that will come in front of Parliament. You were one of the 37 candidates or so who signed it. Why did you do this?
Well, first of all, it wasn't actually a petition. It was someone asked me on Facebook on our position on abortion, and I simply reiterated that the party's position on abortion is clear. We recognize life from conception, and as a candidate of the Nationalist Party, like all other candidates of the Nationalist Party, we subscribe to that view that abortion should remain illegal, and we protect life from conception. Having said that, though, we have to put in place measures which avoid the need or reduce the need for abortion in the first place. So we have suggested already a revamp of the sexual education policy, providing MAP free of charge, providing contraceptions free of charge, as a way to avoid abortions in the first place.
It should be illegal. So do you agree with Abba's decision to report these pro-choice activists to the police for spreading information about abortion?
I'm not really aware of the report. What were they reported about?
They were reported like 18 activists for apparently the law that was broken is unclear, but it seems to be for encouraging people to use abortion or referring them to services where they can get an abortion.
I don't think informing or discussing these issues in the first place should be punishable, or should.
What role should the police have in all of this? Like if they find someone who's carrying out an abortion, what should they do? If a policeman finds someone in Malta who has carried out an abortion, or a doctor who has helped a woman carry out an abortion, what should happen?
What the law suggests.
Imprisonment.
It should be prosecuted. No, that's what the law says at the moment.
So you agree with them going to court?
Well, as a doctor in Malta, you should not perform abortions. So if you do it, you should be prosecuted.
With potential imprisonment at the end of it?
I think that's what the law says, no? So,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. And finally, for those who may not know you, how can they reach out to you?
Well, they can reach me on various media, on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on my website, marketingistanbul.com. There's also my mobile number. They can leave a message. They can email me. I apologize immediately if I don't reply immediately, but I will reply in at least 48 hours, because at the moment we are inundated with requests. But even if people want to meet me, want to set up an appointment, want me to visit them at their homes, feel free to reach out and I'll be available.
Mark Anthony Sammut, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us on Lovin Daily today. Make sure to follow lovinmalta.com and have an evening full of lovin'.